Hi everyone, Father Lamb here, and it's Wednesday again, Wednesday, October 16th. Yesterday was the 15th, and it was the feast of St. Teresa of Avila. I love St. Teresa of Avila, and I just wanted to maybe talk about her for a couple minutes today. She lived back in the 16th century. I think she was born like in 1515. She was an incredible mystic in the church. Her story is just incredible. In fact, it was just a few months ago, I believe, that they opened up her tomb and found that her body is incorrupt, free of decay. It's really an incredible thing. What a blessing that God has granted her. But her writings are just very powerful. The Way of Perfection, she wrote that, which is really a kind of a reflection on the Our Father. She wrote that incredible book, The Interior Castle. That's a classic. It's a masterpiece. And going into the interior life. And along with St. John of the Cross, who was her contemporary, both of them worked to reform their orders, her the Carmelite nuns and him the friars. But their lives are definitely worth reading, and in reading their spirituality, because both of them have given us some of the best spiritual classics that we know in the Catholic Church or even in the world. And there's a lot of things I could say about her. I know in her life she was sickly as a child, and when she entered into the sisterhood, her father wasn't happy that she was entering into the sisterhood. And also she it's funny, in some of her writing, she admits that she really didn't pray in the convent early on. She wasn't really a person of prayer, which just sounds incredible. And then she got serious about prayer, and then the fruit from that is just incredible that we all can read. I'd like to share with you just like maybe one image of her, just like a metaphor she used for the spiritual life that's pretty simple and then maybe worth our meditation today. And it's the metaphor of a garden. Just picture yourself having a garden, and you have to water the garden, okay? And she shows that how we water that garden is really kind of synonymous with how we walk through the stages of the spiritual life. Like, for example, in the very beginning, to irrigate this garden, you go to a really far location and you grab a bucket of water, and you put the bucket on your shoulder, and you very laboriously carry it all the way over to your garden, and you water your garden. And she says that's the way it is early in the spiritual life. She says what we're trying to do is we're trying to avoid sin and deal with temptation and live a better life and say our prayers and all these things. That's the first stage, if you will, of the spiritual life. The second stage, she says, as we mature, she calls it the prayer of quiet. And what happens in that stage really is when God is more active and we are more passive. So you find yourself growing in the spiritual life. You just want to sort of be with God. It's not like you're doing all these things. You may be saying your prayers, but it's being with God, and He's kind of doing the action, and we're just a little bit more passive. We don't struggle as much carrying the water. And the analogy she uses is that a pump becomes available, and the pump then is pumping the water. So we don't have that much effort in that stage of the spiritual life. It's very beautiful. And then she goes into the third stage, which really is a stage of dryness, if you will. And that period of dryness is a time that I think a lot of us get upset because we think we're doing something wrong, but we're not. We're really being purified. And the analogy shows that there's a river right there nearby, and from the river, the water comes. It's present there all the time, so it's no effort on our part. But our prayer is dry. And many of the saints went through this, and I think if we all get serious about the spiritual life and we stay with it, we are going to go through that period of dryness. But I think what we need to learn is it doesn't mean we're doing anything wrong. It just means we're being purified, but we're really in a good stage. In that period, we won't have a lot of consolations. We won't get, oh, I feel so great in my spiritual life. It's just like, it's very dry. And it's kind of just accepting that, but the fruits are there, if you will. You see, because the water's there and the fruits will be there in our spiritual life. Mother Teresa of Calcutta went through this for years, where she felt nothing. And yet the fruit of her life was incredible, the people that she helped. And then you look at her from a distance and go, boy, she must be enjoying great consolation. She wasn't. She's experiencing deep dryness in her prayer life, but her life was very, very fruitful. And then there's the fourth stage that she talks about, St. Teresa. And we experience God in the fourth stage just pouring graces upon us. And so we kind of go into a period where we do feel more consolations. But in that stage, she calls it's kind of like having this beautiful rain come down upon us. We're not working hard with the bucket. We're just allowing this rain to sort of come upon us. So, we all go through these stages in the spiritual life. And I think what we can learn from her is what I've already said is when we go through the stages that are harder, when there's not as much consolation, stay with it. I think that's the key. It's going to prayer and staying with it no matter what we're feeling. And too often we get caught up in the feelings of prayer, and I'm not getting a good feeling, and then we want to leave prayer. I don't want to spend time in front of the Blessed Sacrament. I don't want to spend time in prayer because it's really not doing me any good. Wrong. It's dealing with something that's deeper, and the fruits there of our spiritual life where we're going out and helping others, which is really what it's all about. But what it brings us down to in this interior journey is as we grow in the spiritual life, one thing begins to surface beyond anything else. And what that is we want to please God. We want to do God's will. And sometimes I know in my own spiritual life, it's like, yeah, God, I'll do your will be done. But when it comes down to the concrete part of it, sometimes I don't want to do his will because his will is hard. But as we grow in the spiritual life, we see that everything is better if it's God's will, even if it's something you have to go through that's difficult. Jesus Christ himself experienced that in the Garden of Gethsemane. He walked into that garden, knelt down, and Father, take this cup from me, because he knew what was happening. He knew they were going to kill him. And yet he said then, your will, not mine, be done. And the benefit of that is salvation for the entire world, right? Eternal life. And he rose from the dead. So all of that was good. But Jesus had to trust the Father, just as you and I need to trust the Father when we say God's will be done. But as we grow in the spiritual life, we really want to please God more than we want to please other people. And that's the growth that we find as we stay with our prayer. Maybe this week, just get a sense of where you are in the spiritual life. You're still carrying the bucket along and you're laboriously struggling. You find yourself just want to sit in the presence of God, stay with it. Find yourself experiencing dryness in prayer. Whatever you're experiencing is okay. The key is to remain disciplined and to keep praying and keep coming back into the presence of God. Because the word discipline is the same root as the word disciple. And if you and I want to be good disciples, we have to be people of discipline, one day at a time. So let's ask God to give us the grace to say from our hearts, your will, not mine, be done. God bless you.